start with the smallest possible piece of sound that you can imagine. Maybe a tap or a click, but anyway, something really small, quick and unidentifiable. If we repeat this sound in an even, regular pattern, getting faster and faster, a new property emerges. Gradually, our perception of the repeating clicks changes and we begin to hear something new and different, something that we call pitch. It would seem that we have some sort of perceptual mechanism in our brains that kicks in when the repetition frequency becomes too fast to keep track of each individual click or instance of sound. And all the separate elements, all the separate clicks merge into a single continuous stream of sound which has this special property that we call pitch. And you've probably noticed that the sensation of pitch is linked to the frequency of the repetitions. However, this mechanism doesn't work forever, and as the repetitions get really fast, the sensation of pitch gets higher and gradually disappears. And though sensitive instruments can still detect the presence of the sound, and some animals such as dogs and bats can hear sound a lot higher than we humans can, eventually at very high frequencies, the sound detection mechanism lets us all down and we can no longer hear it. At this point, it might seem that the property called pitch is enough for us to distinguish between two sounds at different frequencies. But wait, listen to this simple sound with a frequency of 256 repetitions or cycles per second. And again. Now let's listen to a sound at twice the frequency. And one more time. These pitches are clearly different, yet they have a sort of similar quality. And when they are both played together, it is difficult to detect two separate pitches. Listen to the two sounds together. And again. There's clearly something going on, so let's investigate further. So our pitch perception seems to resonate in some way when the frequencies of simple sounds are related, as in the last example, where one frequency was twice that of the other. In fact, if we play a group of these sounds together, whose frequencies are all integer multiples of a common frequency, the sounds fuse together into one, and the frequency of the pitch that we perceive is the lowest common denominator of all the frequencies present. As the group of sounds fuse together, a new property emerges alongside the perceived pitch. We call it timbre. Timbre is the tone color or the tonal quality of a sound. Our ability to perceive and recognize timbre enables us to distinguish between sounds just as pitch does. So perhaps this needs a demonstration. So now we're in the laboratory, and we're going to start by creating a simple continuous sound at 256 cycles per second, just like the sounds we've been listening to, and then adding one at a time sounds at integer multiples of that frequency. You can see them listed on the right hand side. We start with 256, then we'll add in 512, then 768, and so on. As the higher sounds are added, you may still perceive their pitches independently, but soon they will merge into just one sound that appears to get brighter and brighter, but retains the original pitch of 256 cycles per second. And you can hum this sound to convince yourself that it is at that pitch. Let's listen to the process in reverse, removing the high harmonics first until we're left with our original pitch. Not surprisingly, the sound gets mellower as the high harmonics are removed, and as they are removed you can probably detect the pitch of the individual harmonics. What you're listening to is the harmonic series at work, a set of simple sounds whose frequencies are related. Starting with the fundamental frequency, which is the first harmonic, the second harmonic, is 2 times the fundamental frequency. The third is 3 times the fundamental frequency, and so on. Now, these sound elements are sine waves, they're very simple sounds, and are called harmonics, or sometimes referred to as overtones. And when presented all together, it's called the spectrum of the sound. Typically, the more harmonics or overtones present, the brighter the sound. But the relative strength or intensity of each harmonic contributes greatly to the timbre or tone character of the sounds. So now let's get back into the laboratory because there is a surprise in store. So starting with our full spectrum, if we remove the harmonics beginning with the lowest frequency first and leaving only the higher harmonics, the perceived pitch still remains at the fundamental, even though that sound has been removed. Now certainly the sound gets thinner, but the pitch still seems to be down there at 256, in this case, cycles per second. Can you hear it? Clearly, the relative intensities of the harmonic components of a sound are very important in defining its timbre, and they do this without affecting the pitch. Now here are a couple of examples of tones that you might recognize. First is a clarinet-like sound. It's not trying to imitate exactly a clarinet, but I think you'll hear the resemblance. Notice that every other harmonic is missing in the spectrum. And now an oboe-like sound, more nasal than the clarinet, and some of the lower harmonics of the series are reduced. So, we began by asking, what's in a note? Well, we started with listening to clicks, getting faster and faster and faster until a property called pitch emerged and is perceived. Then by adding pitches together, whose frequencies have a special relationship to each other and are integer multiples of a common frequency, we find that the individual sound elements, called harmonics, lose their independence and fuse together, and we perceive another property which is called timbre. Both of these properties are absolutely central to what a musical note is. In our final example, we're going to listen to a simple repetitive phrase of 3 descending notes, played over and over again, with our clarinet tone. Gradually, every other note will morph into the oboe-like tone, changing its timbre. And your brain will start to work overtime trying to decide whether the descending phrase is still there with different timbres or whether it has been replaced by 2 ascending phrases at half the speed. Enjoy it, and then we'll see you next time.